So let's have a look at example 10. Example 10 says, given that h of x is equal to h of x is equal to 7 over 6 minus 3x, and g of x is equal to 3x minus 1 over 2x plus 3, we're to determine the real value of x for which h of x is undefined. All right. What I want to do is I want to try and explain this to you before we actually start to do it. Because working on the answer is very easy, but you can work it out and don't understand it. And I think the understanding is important. Now, when a function is actually, let us say, a fraction, and there is x in the denominator, there's always a value of x that cannot be in the domain of the function. So when your function is a fraction and there's x in the denominator, there's always a value of x that cannot be in the domain of the function. All right, I'm going to try and explain by, let us say for example, f of x is equal to, let us say, 16 over, let us say, x minus 4, just argument's sake. And let us say when x is 0. When x is 0, like f of 0 would be 16 over 0 minus 4. This would be minus 4. When f is, let us say, 2, f of 2 would be 16 over 2 minus 4, which would be 16 over minus 2, which would have been minus 8. Let us say f of, let us say, 6. F of 6 would be, let us say, 16 over 6 minus 4, which is 16 over 2, and this would be 8. So far we're getting values. We have domain, we have x, and we have f of x. So 0 corresponds to minus 4. 2 corresponds to minus 8. 6 corresponds to positive 8. Now, let us see what happens when x is equal to 4. Guys, I need for you all to pay attention. It's important. What happens when x is equal to 4? When x is equal to 4, f of 4 would be equal to 16 over 4 minus 4, which would be 16 over 0. Guys, what is 16 over 0? Anybody? Use your calculator, punch 16 divided by 0 in it and tell me what you get. Anybody? Anybody? Well, Jaden is saying it to me over here. When f is 4, the denominator is going to come out to be 0. And when the denominator is 0, there won't be anything over. You cannot divide by 0. It is impossible to divide by 0. So there is no value for f of 4. So what you have is a situation is that there is a value in the domain for which there is no value in the codomain. Now, in a situation like this, this is not a function. So for this to be a function, we'd have to take out the number 4 out of the domain. And for this particular function, the number 4 cannot be in the domain. Or in other words, the number 4 makes the function no longer a function. In other words, the number 4 makes the function undefined. When x is equal to 4, there's no value for f of 4. There's nothing for 4 to map to. So therefore, the relation is not a function. When x is 4, the relation is not a function. To get the relation to be a function, we have to take out 4. So therefore, 4 cannot be in the domain, and 4 is the value of x that makes this function undefined. So that is me trying to attempt to explain this thing. Now, let me know basically what? Tell you what to do whenever you get these two questions. The two questions are worded differently, but they're asking the same thing. Determine the real value of x for which h of x is undefined. Remember, the denominator of a function must never, ever, ever come out to be 0. So if this question is asked, you're going to put the denominator equal to 0. So we have 6 minus, to spell it out, h of x is equal to 7 over 6 minus 3x. You're going to put the denominator, which is 6 minus 3x, to be equal to 0 and solve the equation. You're going to get minus 3x is equal to minus 6. Divide both sides by minus 3. And we get x is equal to 2 is the value of x for which h of x is undefined. In other words, this value of x cannot be in the domain of x. Because for this value of x, the denominator is going to become 0. And when the denominator is 0, you cannot get a value for h of x. So in other words, there is no value for h of 2. So therefore, 2 cannot be in the domain of the function. 2 is the value of x that makes the function undefined. So for B now, state the real value of x which cannot be in the domain of g of x. It is the same question that is just being asked differently. So therefore you must do the same thing. Put the denominator of the function equal to 0 and solve the equation. Do that very quickly. Tell me what you get. So for B, if we're asked to state the real value of x which cannot be in the domain of the function, we have g of x is equal to 3x minus 1 over 2x plus 3. What we need to do is to find out the value of x, which is going to make the denominator equal to 0. Because remember, the denominator of a function must never be equal to 0. So you're going to put 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. So 2x is equal to minus 3. Then you divide both sides by 2. And when you do, you're going to get x is equal to minus 3 over 2 is the value of x which cannot be in the domain of g of x. And the reason for that is um, if if x if x is equal to minus 3 over 2, the denominator is going to come out to be 0. And if the denominator come out to be 0, for example, in a sense, there will not be any value for g of minus 3 over 2. G of minus 3 over 2 will not have any value because minus 3 over 2 will make the denominator equal to 0. And if the denominator is equal to 0, you won't get any value because it is impossible to divide by 0. So the questions are asked differently, but it's basically asking the same thing. And what you have to do is you have to put the denominator of the function equal to 0, solve the equation, and then make the statement.